Board, you have 6.0, which are reports and action items from executive session. Do I hear a motion to approve 28 certified recommendations for the 2020-2021 school year?
Madam Chair, I move the board accept Dr. Little and senior leadership team's recommendation for 28 certified recommendations for the 2020-2021 school year.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Powers. We now have a motion on the floor for the 28 certified positions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Oswald. Are there any questions or comments, board? Okay, hearing none, if you'll raise your hand, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approving the 28 certified recommendations, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. Motion carries and it is unanimous. Do I have a second motion for the administrative positions?
Madam Chair, I move that the board accept the 6 administrative recommendations as put forward by Dr. Little and the senior leadership team.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Powers. We now have a motion for 6 administrative recommendations for the 2020-2021 school year. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Dr. Powers, second by Mr. Anderson. Are there any questions or comments, board? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. If you'll raise your hand, all in favor, raise your hand, please. Okay, any opposed? Okay, the motion carries and it is unanimous. Board, we did have a contractual matter that we discussed in executive session. Do I hear a motion to approve the contractual matter?
Madam Chair, in regards to the legal action, Garris versus Lexington County School District
Wait,
1.
excuse me, this is the,
That's not that contractual matter.
no,
Okay,
this
my
is the-
apologies.
no, that's okay. This is the land contractual.
Okay,
matter.
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Madam Chair, I move that the board authorize the administration to amend the option agreements related to the 2 parcels known by Lexington County as TMS number 005498-07014, containing approximately 44.27 acres, with Royalty Holdings 1 LLC and TMS number 005498-07-015, containing approximately 2.61 acres with Royalty Properties LLC for the purpose of relocating the district transportation facility by adding Exhibit B, which establishes the purchase price of $1,500,160 or $32,000 per acre.
Okay, we now have a motion on the floor from Mr. Oswald. Do I have a second? Okay, we now have a second from Ms. Green, and at this time I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Salters and we'll get an update and then we'll open it up for questions, board.
We can't hear him.
I got it. I'm unmuted. Okay, we're going to get this presentation loaded. Okay, here we go. put it in presentation mode or no? Okay. Hopefully everyone can see that on their screens now. And this is, again, a conversation we've had for a number of months now. The original option was signed back in February as you authorized that. And tonight we are, at our last meeting, we talked about the price of this property and the appraisals. And tonight I'm just revisiting that same presentation. Just to recap what we're doing here, the Facility Study Committee a number of years ago, leading up to our 2018 bond referendum, gave some recommendations to relocate our bus transportation facility that currently is located on Bar Road, and it serves Lexington High School and River Bluff. And so by relocating to a more central location, we will be able to serve White Knoll, River Bluff, and Lexington. And you can see the distances approximately from this property to those three high schools and the subsequent attendance areas that they will serve. Obviously, when looking for this property, an industrial area was preferred because of the nature of the business that we do, starting buses early in the morning, having them out on the roads and arriving late back in the evenings as well. We need good sight lines and multiple access points, preferably in this case have separate driveways for buses and employees. And this property that we're looking at meets some of that. This is a shot of the current location here on Bar Road, and this property is actually leased from the State Department of Education, and has been that type of arrangement for many, many years. And this is a kind of a zoomed in shot of that. Co-located here is the Lexington County bus maintenance facility that the state also runs to help maintain and support the state-owned bus fleet. And so the property that we're looking at and proposing this price on this evening is located adjacent to I-20. It fronts Two Notch Road. The large interchange there would be South Lake Drive leading out towards the White Knoll community there at I-20. And taking a closer look at the property, you can see that it butts up against on the rear side of I-20, which gives us some pretty good security from that standpoint. And then we have multiple access points to create driveways with frontages on Two Notch Road. There's looking at the topography of the land, it lays pretty well. It slopes kind of right to left. There is a kind of a draw in the middle of the property, and there's a small pond there now, which we would make use of as part of our storm detention operation, which we would have a large amount of paving on this site as a result of hard surfaces for parking the buses. And here's a shot of that wetland area. Is approximately 2.5 acres or 5.3% of the overall site. And site development, initial site development look, the building, the training facilities, the parking, the maintenance bays and all that would be located in the kind of the upper portion of the site where you see that bare land area. It's already pretty level. And we would have a training facility for our bus drivers as part of this building, and some office space. It would be modeled similarly to our operations facility now in layout. And again, this is just a shot of kind of the general overall orientation of the property. As I mentioned earlier, and is spoken in the motion, we did do 2 independent appraisals to come up with this price, and those are how we got to this point. So we're recommending this evening. We will just to recap the process. We will should the board act on this motion, we would sign Exhibit B and confirm that with the seller. They would sign it. And then we would continue our due diligence process and ensure that all the other site needs are met. Once that process is completed, we would then bring a motion back to the board for a recommendation to close the property and do a final purchase arrangement at that point. So we still have a lot of work left to do should the board act on this evening. Happy to answer any questions.
Board, do we have any questions? Does anybody have a question for Mr. Salters or a comment?
I just have some discussion about the motion in general. Originally, we were told we needed between 15 and 20 acres. We're now looking at 44 acres and an additional 2.61 acres. And first of all, we don't need that much land. But secondly, for the 2.61 acres, we are buying a bar and a house, which is not needed because we already have enough entrances. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
Okay, Mr. Salters, did you want to comment on that?
Sure, I'll be happy to. We are looking at the additional, first of all, we are, the area that we're looking for property, a lot of times we have to buy property that is available to us and not just a certain slice of a land that, maybe we want a certain amount and that certain amount isn't always on the market or available for sale. And so we work with what's out there. And in some cases, that may be a little bit larger or it may be a little bit smaller. In this case, we're very comfortable with the size of this property because it gives us room for growth. I look at this building that we're in right now. It was built in the 90s, and we thought at that time we would never have the need for any additional space. And then we've acquired properties across the street to try to make room for additional office space as we were landlocked here. So it never hurts to have a little bit of extra space in an area. And then as far as the additional access, those buildings that are on the site are of no value and really were not considered as part of the appraisal because they're not valuable property. Basically, they'll be torn down and we're not considered as part of the appraisal. They are going to be removed from the site. And the additional access does provide us better sight lines. It does give us an additional entrance with broader road frontage. So that will help with our site layout.
Any other questions or comments, board?
Mr.
Yes.
Salters, didn't you mention at one point in time that another piece of property that was under consideration was smaller in acreage, but actually was a comparable price to what we are considering for this piece of property?
Yes, Ms. Green, there was another piece of property in the area actually that had frontage on South Lake and frontage on Two Notch that was smaller, but was a considerable amount more per acre in their offering.
I know you said that this appraisal didn't add any value because of the other land. We are actually signing a separate option agreement for the 2.61 acres that includes the bar and a house. So it's not like this is just a couple of acres that are included in that. We actually have two separate agreements here. So we are agreeing to about 44 some odd acres and then an additional 2.61 acres with a bar and a house.
That you are correct, and what I mean by that, what you see is that those pieces of property were appraised at the same per acre price. So if your statement were to be valid, you would have that particular parcel of 2 odd acres be much more per acre, and it's not. It's the same value, $32,000 an acre.
Right.
That 30,000 was applied across the board. So those improvements that are on that property bring no additional value to the property.
Correct. And I know the appraisal said it would actually cost around $25,000 to demolish those structures. But my whole point is first of all, we don't need 44 acres. We're currently using 7.58 acres right now. And we definitely don't need an additional 2.61 acres with a house and a bar that's going to cost us money to demolish that.
When would you
We're-
suggest that we buy it, Mrs. Garris,
We're-
after it goes up?
Let me clarify something real quick. We're actually using a portion of the acreage at the Bar Road facility, but that's only the River Bluff and Lexington buses. We're also using White Knoll High School, a large parking area there for the White Knoll buses, which will be consolidated on this property. Neither one of those facilities has an adequate bus maintenance operation, bus cleaning operation, and training facility and office space for our bus personnel. Neither one of those facilities also, well, actually the White Knoll facility does include storm drainage because it is on our site there. But the Bar Road facility does not include any storm detention. And I'm sure you've been by there, Ms. Garris, and you've seen after it rains, it floods and you can't get in those buses in the back. So you do need additional property to accommodate the new building codes that are out there. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Anderson. Go ahead.
That's all right. And doesn't that also include where the Bar of Lexington is right now? Doesn't that include where we're going to have an entrance?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Salters, I'm sorry, I had another question. The building plan bond referendum that the voters approved in 2018, this transportation facility was part of that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And as part of that facilities needs, there was kind of a breakdown of expected costs associated with property and things like that. Is this piece of property within that projection?
So let me clarify. In the facility study, there was a budget for the facility. There was not a breakdown of land versus building.
Right.
Okay, so there was an overall, I think, $3 million, I'm using round numbers, $3 million or so in the facility study for a transportation facility. And in all those facility numbers, there's the option, if you will, to, if the budget allows, to fund that land through that number, but it doesn't necessarily limit you to that money for land acquisition.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So in other words, the prices that were listed in the facility study, those don't even include land. So the $3 million for the transportation facility is just for the building. It's not for the $1.5 million for land.
That is a site development cost for that facility. And so they have really no way, the facility study, when it was developed, had really no way to put a value on the land. And so they would, they included some small placeholders for the new facilities, but they didn't have a way to know where the district was going to buy land. So it was really not practical to include, anything in there of any significance for land, because just as an example, this is a good example. The Lexington Middle School land, and then the current piece of land that we're still looking for, the River Bluff area elementary school land, as those areas, the land comes in very short supply, the market drives the cost. The development of the facility study, they really didn't have a way to know where we would end up with price on those.
So at the end of the day, the facility study does not include the price of land.
If you can fit it in that budget, that's great. But if not, then we have other sources of capital funds to be able to do that.
Right. Okay.
So how many buses will this particular site serve?
Well, initially, and Mr. Caldwell might have a better number, but I think initially it's probably around 130 or so, or 140 buses. We'll have a large volume of activity buses. I see him nodding his head, so
that's right, about 140.
And so, of course, as the schools grow and as we add schools in these areas, we'll end up adding more routes and more buses to the fleet.
So how many buses would you say over the last 5 years, 3 years, however many, have we added to the regular route buses, not activity buses or district buses?
I'm gonna let Mr. Caldwell jump in on that one.
I don't have the exact number, but I'm not sure there's been any added up until recently with, I think we were given 11 additional buses. They're not brand new buses, but they were additions to our fleet. Some of those buses went to Kershaw County because right after we got the buses, they were hit with a tornado and it destroyed their fleet. And I think we've gotten 4 of those of the 11, I think, that we're allotted to get.
Thank you. I just knew we hadn't grown a lot. Also, I know that, and I keep hearing rumors that Gilbert's going to be included. Dr. Little has assured me that it's not. Either way, that what we have at Gilbert is not a long-term solution. So another concern I have is that all of those buses that are parked in the middle of the football stadium and have to move every time we have a big game, that we're either going to have to build something for them or move them over to this facility. And that's a pretty good distance for Gilbert drivers to drive if they were to move over to this facility.
I think you bring up a valid concern, Ms. Garris, and as a part of the facility study, the needs were prioritized with the transportation offices. Of course, Gilbert has an office that was built there at the high school and co-located the parking lot there. Actually, you may or may not remember, but that parking lot was dirt for a long time. And the reason or the thinking about relocating to that facility was it allowed for kind of a multi-use pavement operation. So the district was able to pave that lot with high resistance asphalt, and it serves multiple purposes because of the football stadium being adjacent to that and the other sports activities there. So there was some kind of shared cost in that endeavor to be able to do that. But it's not fenced, like this facility would be. And so there's some improvements that need to be made long-term there. But that was prioritized kind of behind the Bar Road facility. As I'm sure you're aware, they're in some pretty old, dilapidated portables that have been around since the 70s, and that's what they're functioning in as their office spaces and training facilities. So they're very, very much inadequate.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments, board? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Mr. Oswald made the motion. Ms. Green seconded it. This is just to set the price for these 2 parcels of land, one for Royal Holdings 1 LLC, the other for Royal Properties LLC. At this point, once the price is set, we are basically giving permission to Mr. Salters and his group to begin the due diligence on that property. So let's take a vote. All in favor of this motion, please raise your hand, please. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 in favor. Any opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, we have 1 opposed, Ms. Garris. Okay, the motion passes 6-1. We will now move to the legal matter. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. The Board of Trustees received legal advice during executive session. Board member Jada Garris has submitted a statement of recusal dated December 4th, 2018, thereby abstaining herself of all votes, deliberations, and other action on the following matter. Jada Garris, individually and on behalf of all others similarly situated versus Lexington County School District 1, case number 2017-CP-32-04435. Excuse me. The recusal states the reason for the disqualification is that Ms. Garris is a litigant in the above-mentioned matter who possesses a financial interest in its outcome. Ms. Garris was not part of this discussion in executive session, nor will she be voting on this matter. Board members, do I hear a motion regarding the discussion from legal counsel? Do I hear a motion regarding this discussion?
Madam Chair, in regards to the legal action Garris versus Lexington County School District 1, I move that we authorize the district's attorneys to file an appeal on behalf of Lexington County School District 1 concerning the attorney's fees award in this case.
We have a motion from Mr. Anderson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second from Dr. Powers. Board, are there any questions or comments before we take a vote? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. If you'll raise your hand, all in favor of seeking the appeal as per the motion from Mr. Anderson, please raise your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5. Do we have any opposed? Okay, we have 1 opposed. So 5 in favor, 1 opposed. Dr. Guyton is opposed. The motion carries, and we will instruct our legal team to seek the appeal.